So today's video is going to be another solved true crime case. Today we're going to be talking about the Hello Kitty murder. This is a really well-known case. It's quite a popular one that's often talked about in like true crime forums and things like that. Again, this was a channel member suggested case, so thank you so much to Horigami who suggested this one. And while we're on the topic of channel members, I just want to give you a little bit of a update. So about a year ago, almost, I activated channel members on this channel. Thank you so much, by the way, if you are a channel member. It means the whole entire world to me that you want to go that extra step and support me and the content that I make. And because I activated channel members right when it first launched, it was still kind of basic. You only had one option, like all channel members would pay $4.99 a month and they would all get the same perks. It was pretty much like Patreon but with one level. And like all that was well and good, but there were a lot of you guys that said you wanted to support me, you wanted to be channel members, but you couldn't afford $4.99 a month, which is totally understandable. But now YouTube have changed it so that you can have different tiers of channel members for different prices. So we've finally got two levels to the Eleanor Neale channel members right now. So level 1 is $1.99 a month and you get access to the community tab where we discuss cases, you can request cases and get them fast-tracked. You also get that little sticker of my face next to your name in the comments. And then level 2 is all of that plus your name on the end card at the end, as it always has been. So if you're currently a channel member right now, don't worry, nothing's gonna change, your perks aren't gonna change, the price isn't gonna change, like you don't have to change anything, like you're good. Of course, if you wanna go down to the $1.99 tier, that's absolutely fine as well. You'll still have access to the community tab. But don't worry if you can't become a channel member at all, like I understand. I appreciate every single one of you for supporting me in any way that you already do. Whether it's like leaving a thumbs up on my videos or putting my notifications on or commenting on my videos or just, you know, turning up and watching the videos that I put out. It does mean the world to me. Not to get soppy, but you guys have allowed me to have my dream job at such a young age and I can't thank you enough. It really does mean the world to me. Let's get into the video. I do want to give a little bit of a warning though on this case. It is very disturbing. It's kind of similar to the Junko Furuta case that I covered. It's very graphic. I will give another warning right before it gets really graphic. If you still want to watch this video and you still want to hear the story but you just don't want the really bad stuff, I'll put a little warning and a timestamp so you can skip that. But if you just can't handle cases like this at all, thank you so much for coming along. I'll leave you a different video here if you still want to watch a video, just not this one. But yeah, I'm so sorry about this super long intro. Before we get into it, I just want to give my usual disclaimer that I mean absolutely no disrespect to anyone that I talk about in this video. This video is for educational purposes and everything that I'm about to say is just information that I have found on the internet and I'm compiling into one video. So in May of 1999, police in Sim Sha Su in Hong Kong had a very distressed teenage girl come into their police station. This girl had just turned 14 years old. She came alone, no parents, no friends or anything, and she was very clearly distressed. And she sat there and she told police that she thought she was being haunted. And because she was so obviously worked up and stressed about this, they just let her talk, even though police obviously don't deal with paranormal things and stuff like that. They just let her kind of get everything out to them. So this girl told police about this one particular spirit that would come to her every single night. It was a young woman in her 20s. She had blood all over her. And this teenage girl felt that the only way that she could get this spirit to stop coming to her was if she went to the police. And that was when police realised why this girl had come to the police station, of all places, to talk about a ghost. This teenage girl confessed to police that she had taken part in the month-long torture and murder of a young woman in her 20s, and this spirit was the victim coming back to haunt her until she confessed. So this teenage girl, her identity has been protected through this whole case. No one knows who she really was. She's just referred to in every single source as Ah Fong. She was 14 when she went to the police station and talked about all of this. However, she was actually only 13 when she took part in this crime. But she wasn't alone in this. She was actually part of a group that did this to this woman. However, she was the youngest and she was the only female. All the other people in this group were older men in their 20s and 30s, and they were very powerful men, members of the triad, if you know what that is. It's essentially like the Chinese mafia. It's organised crime, very, very rich, very, very powerful, very, very scary people. And she sat and told police that it was mainly all of the men that were doing this to this woman, and she just occasionally joined in. And the way that she actually got sucked up into this whole thing, because obviously she was the odd one out, the rest of them were older men. The way that she got sucked into it was because one of these older men was actually her boyfriend. She was 13 years old and her boyfriend in this group was 34. So to make this case a little bit easier to follow along with, we're going to go right to the beginning of the timeline and pretty much like start from the beginning. So the victim was 23-year-old nightclub hostess Fan Man Yi. Sources say she was a nightclub hostess, although I don't think that is what you think it is, you know what I mean? I think a lot of people assumed that she was like a waitress or something like that, but I believe what that means is that she was a sex worker. So I don't know much about Fan Man Yi's childhood and upbringing. I just know that her parents abandoned her when she was very young. I read abandoned. Now I don't know whether it was abandoned as if they just didn't want this child or if they just couldn't look after a child. But she ended up growing up in orphanages. And of course, when you reach the age of 16, or at this time, when you reach the age of 16, you would be kicked out of these orphanages because you can fend for yourself. And realistically, 16-year-olds can't really fend for themselves, for the most part anyway. And so Fan Man Yi found herself doing illegal sex work and taking drugs and doing petty crimes to be able to survive. Fan Man Yi also gave birth to a son around this time. Some sources say it was to a husband, although this husband isn't mentioned anywhere else in any other source, so I don't know if she actually had a husband. And other sources say that this baby was to a client because she was a sex worker, which to me seems more likely, although I don't know. So in 1997, when Man Yi was 21 years old, she began working in a brothel rather than just on the streets. So she was still in sex work, but it was kind of more regulated. That's probably not the word. But she had like her regular clients, she had like a boss that was like looking over her and like making sure that she was there. It wasn't a good job to have by any means, but it was a little bit more safe than being out on the streets. And this job meant that she was in contact with a lot of seedy characters a lot of the time. And many of Man Yi's clients and her bosses and things were all members of the triad. Very, very dangerous, scary people to be around. And Man Yi knew this, but she still decided to push her luck. So one day, Man Yi had this regular client round. His name was Chan Man Lok. He was a member of the triad, and he always came to Fan Man Yi. She was like his favourite. And Man Yi decided that once they'd finished up and everything, she was going to steal his wallet. And Man Lok's wallet had around 4,000 Hong Kong dollars in it, which is the equivalent to about 400 British pounds. And of course, Man Lok eventually found out about this. I mean, there was just them two in the room. It was way too dangerous to even try, but she did. And so Man Lok demanded that Man Yi pay back that full $4,000 plus 10,000 interest because she'd disrespected him, and he probably threatened her that if she didn't get this money to him, he would do something to her. So Man Yi managed to get together this $4,000 and she gave it back to Man Lok, and he was like, where's the other 10,000? And so Man Yi said that she was gonna get him it, but it was gonna take her a little bit longer. And he didn't like that. Man Lok knew that he was probably never going to get this 10,000 back from Man Yi, and he was scared that maybe she was going to do a runner and try and get out of paying him at all. And so Man Lok decided that the next logical thing to do in this situation would be to enlist the help of two of his triad friends and kidnap Fan Man Yi. So 34-year-old Chan Man Lok and his friends 27-year-old Lung Xing Cho and 21-year-old Lung Wai Lun all set out to find Fan Man Yi. So on March 17th, 1999, the men actually came across Man Yi on the side of the road. She was back to work in the streets, obviously because she was way too scared to go back to that brothel where she knew that Man Lok would probably be. So these three men grabbed Fan Man Yi, put her in the back of their vehicle and drove her to a property that the triad owned. So they took her into this old, run-down, unfurnished, dingy, dark apartment. Literally, like, the walls were crumbling, the pictures are horrendous. So Chan Man Lok's plan was that he was going to make Fan Man Yi pay off her debt, be it through money or through services. He was going to set up a little mini brothel with just Fan Man Yi. There weren't going to be any other girls there, and she was going to provide services for him and his friends and his associates, work colleagues, whatever, until she managed to pay off this debt. So here is where I'm going to put my second little warning. If you want to skip over the full torture, murder, everything like that, please skip to this time, right here. But yeah, you've been warned. So on the first night that the men had Man Yi in this apartment, it was just the three of them, and they all decided to beat and rape her all night, just all into the hours of the morning. And most of the information, bear in mind, that I'm about to tell you about this whole case has actually come from that teenage girl. Because these men will not talk about what they've done. So pretty much everything is from this teenage girl. So this is just what they've told her or what she has personally witnessed. So that is pretty much the baseline of what would happen to Fan Man Yi every day. Beatings and being raped. All day, every day. And this teenage girl would also join in with everything that they were doing to her. And at first it was all just like beating her with their bare hands and things like that. But then eventually weapons were brought into the picture. They would use metal bars and kitchen utensils and bats, and I even read pieces of furniture. And I don't know what that means. This girl said that the men would force Man Yi to smile and laugh and tell them how happy and excited she was about her beatings, and if she wouldn't do that, they would beat her even harder. Before long, Fan Man Yi was so brutally beaten that she could no longer really provide these services that the men were trying to make her do to get out of this debt. Like, realistically, she couldn't really move, and potential clients that were to pay for sex with her were no longer attracted to her because she was so badly beaten. They would say to these men, well, why would we pay for sex with this girl that we're not attracted to, that can't really do anything, when they could just go out on the street and find someone that they are attracted to? So Man Lok's plan to make her pay off the debt wasn't really going to work, but he didn't really care at this point. He now had his own personal punching bag. This man was sick and he liked having a hostage that he could do whatever he wanted to. And when they weren't doing things to Fan Man Yi, all these men would hang out in a separate room and play video games and do crystal meth and just hang out together as if there wasn't a dying woman in the next room. As the days went on, the men started getting more creative with the ways that they would torture Man Yi. They began melting and burning plastic onto her body, dripping candle wax on her body, and when they ran out of things to burn, they just kind of burnt her directly. They would particularly burn the bottoms of her feet, so she couldn't stand, she couldn't walk, she couldn't do anything. Not that she really could anyway, because she was really weak at this point. They found uses for pretty much every single kitchen appliance, kitchen utensil, and I don't know what they would do to her with these things, but I don't think I want to know. Obviously, they would wound her, and when she would have like big gashes on her and things like that, the men would take food and spices and excrement and dirt and urine, and they would stuff it in her wounds and like smear it on her open cuts. They also forced Magny to consume her own urine and feces, and I think they were starving her as well at the same time of like normal food. And if she refused to eat her own whatever, or like if she struggled to do it, if she was gagging or if she threw up, the men would beat her. Around halfway through her captivity, Fan Magny, like I said, was so weak. She could barely move, she was so badly beaten, she was starving, the bottoms of her feet were burnt, so even if she wanted to walk anywhere, she couldn't really. And this was kind of ruining the boys' fun. She was no longer fun to beat and do certain things to her because she wasn't reacting as much. So one of the men suggested that they suspend Fan Magny in the air, making her easier to beat, which is horrendous. She was a physical punching bag for these guys. So they tied up her wrist with electrical cord and then tied up the other end to the ceiling fan so that she was kind of hanging there. And they'd leave her there for hours at a time, sometimes even overnight. And then on the 15th of April, almost a full month after Magny was abducted and brought to this place, the group decided that they wanted to go out for food. So that was all three men and Manlock's 13-year-old girlfriend. And as they often did when they went out, they would lock Fan Magny in the bathroom so she couldn't try to escape. If the door was locked and then the outside door was locked, there was very little chance of her getting out. So they all went out for food and whatever, and then they came back to the apartment a couple of hours later, and that was when Chan Man-lok's 13-year-old girlfriend went to the bathroom and found Fan Magny dead in the bath. Now this is particularly disturbing, but her body was just oozing this thick orange like pus. I don't know how, I don't know why, but it was, and there was a lot of it, and I've seen photos. That's another thing I want to warn you about. If you go and research this case by yourself, please be careful, because there are photos online and they are so disturbing. I found them by accident. I didn't want to see them. I never go and look up things like that. But there were a couple of pictures on this one website where there was no warning, and I've seen them and they are horrendous. So just be careful if you do go and search this case. So at this point, the group were in shock. I don't know if they were ever planning on killing her or if they thought they could just go on like that forever, as if her body was just gonna keep bouncing back and keep, like, as if it wasn't gonna give up on her. I just don't think they expected it to happen so soon, and so they didn't have a plan. They didn't know what to do. Now they had a dead body in this apartment, it was gonna start to smell, and they needed to do something. They needed to dispose of it. So all the men and this guy's girlfriend all go into the other room, and they're all talking about different things they could do. They slept on it overnight, and then they thought about it the next morning, and Chan Man-lok decided that he had the best plan out of everyone. He said that her body could not remain in one piece, otherwise it would be far too easy to identify. It'd be hard to dispose of, like, it'd make it so much easier for them if her body was in smaller pieces. So because Magny's body was already in the bathtub, Chan Man-lok took a butcher's knife and began dismembering her body. And then to remove the flesh from the bones, they decided that they were going to put her body parts in a pot on the stove and boil the flesh and the muscle and everything off of the bone. Some sources even say that at one point, while her body parts were being cooked on the stove, some of the men were cooking noodles right next to her in another pot, which is so disturbing. Other sources say that the men, after they were done doing all of this to Fan Man-yi's body, they actually used that same pot to cook food in, which, again, so disturbing. So, if you haven't heard of this case before, you're probably wondering why it's called the Hello Kitty murder, because so far, there's been no mention of Hello Kitty. And that was because once they finished boiling all of the skin, all of the tissue, all of the muscle from Fan Man-yi's head, they actually took her skull and stuffed it inside of a Hello Kitty mermaid doll and then sewed the whole thing back up. The only things that police actually ever found of Fan Man-yi's body were, of course, her skull in this doll, one of her teeth on the floor, and some of her organs in the fridge. But of course, without a full body, police couldn't determine the cause of death. Now, this is where the case gets quite complicated. So, on one hand, we've got this 13-year-old girlfriend saying this whole story, this whole torture, kidnap, murder story. Meanwhile, the men had a completely different story. They said that they were just running a very small brothel with just Fan Man-yi, and it was all consensual and everything. However, Fan Man-yi was a drug addict. She was addicted to meth. And on this one particular day, she accidentally overdosed on meth, and the men supposedly panicked because she was supposed to be under their care. They weren't supposed to let this kind of thing happen. And the men said that they knew that they would be in trouble if one of their sex workers had died of a drug overdose, and so to hide the body, they stuffed it in a Hello Kitty doll and did all this stuff. Of course, the fact that they dismembered and tried to dispose of her body was very, very bad, and police could see that, and she died under their supervision either way. So while police couldn't prove that they tortured and killed this girl, they could say that she died under their supervision and then they tried to hide it, which looks very suspicious. So because of these conflicting accounts, police just couldn't charge the men with murder because there wasn't any evidence. There wasn't evidence that they had killed her. So instead, all three men were charged with manslaughter. They were all given life sentences without the possibility of parole for 20 years. Which we'll get onto that in a second. All three men were visited by psychiatrists after this because this is obviously a horrendous crime. You have to be some level of messed up to be able to do this. Although I don't think psychiatrists found any mental illness in these guys. I think they were just sociopaths and they had no remorse, they had no emotion, but they weren't actually mentally ill. The teenage girl, although she did take part in the torture and rape of Fan Man-yi, she was actually let free without any charges or anything because obviously she gave so much evidence against these men, evidence that they wouldn't have had otherwise. It was kind of like a plea deal, like, you tell us everything you know about these guys and we won't give you any prison time, you know? So after this whole murder and everything, because of the accounts that this 13-year-old girl gave to the police about Fan Man-yi's spirit coming to her and everything, people that believe in ghosts and spirits and stuff believed that Fan Man-yi's spirit was very easy to contact. It was available. And so the apartment building where she died actually became quite a meeting place for people that were interested in this, people that wanted to contact her spirit. And at first it seemed quite innocent as that can be. It just seemed like interest and, just people that are into that kind of thing wanting to contact her. But after a while, it seemed to be kind of sinister. It became pretty disrespectful and people were doing questionable things at this place. And so in 2012, it was actually demolished. It was there for a long, long time. Between 1999 and 2012, the government allowed that building to still be there. You don't see that a lot, especially in the UK. If a horrendous crime happens at a particular, address, and it's very famous and like everyone hears about this crime, that building will most likely be demolished as soon as it's done being a crime scene. Anyway, in 2016, on that lot of land where that apartment building once was, there's been a hotel built, which is equally as creepy. You would not want to stay at a hotel that was built on the grounds that a woman was tortured on. As for some updates on the men, now this is kind of scary, but obviously because this crime happened in 1999 and they were allowed parole after 20 years, that means they're allowed parole anytime now. It's 2019. I really do hope that the people at their parole hearing take into account what they've done. Like, I hope they don't just try and get them out because it'll be cheaper, you know? These men did some unthinkable things to this woman. Like, they're obviously capable of doing it again. They showed no remorse, no emotion when it happened. And, I mean, I really don't think Chan Man-lok will ever be let out. He was the main guy that did the most. But I think his two little sidekicks have a chance of being let out of prison, which is terrifying. Because these two little sidekicks said that they only did what they did because they were scared of Chan Man-lok. Obviously, he was quite high up in the triad. He was torturing and killing this woman. They were like, well, if we refuse, what's he going to do to us, kind of thing. Now, it's up to you whether you believe that or not, or whether you believe they were just 100% up for torturing and killing this woman. Scarily enough, they might be let out one day because they were just acting on fear. So as for Fan Man-ye's son, like I said, she gave birth to a little boy just 2 years before she died, I want to say. He is actually currently a student in Singapore, and while he has no memory of his mother, obviously he was only 2 years old at the time, he does always wear one of her necklaces that police gave to him. And for now, that's all there is on this case. I guess I'll keep you updated on the guy's parole hearings. It terrifies me. It really does terrify me. Especially because I'm sat here making this video about these really powerful, scary men that have connections. And, you know, I'm just asking for it really, aren't I? As for today's charity shout-out, actually, just a quick little apology from Eleanor Neale. Honestly, what is new there? 2 videos ago, I said that the next charity shout-out was going to be an LGBT charity shout-out. However, it wasn't, and that's because I completely forgot that that video was pre-filmed because of the sponsor in it. So, you know, the LGBT charity that was supposed to be like 2 videos ago? Yeah, that's now. Today I wanted to talk about an LGBT charity from India. This is actually called the Humsafar Trust, and I'm hoping I'm saying that right. Because although India is taking some big steps in like equality and laws and everything at the moment, they still have a long way to go. Same-sex marriage is not yet legal in India, and it was only made legal to have consensual gay sex in 2018. Not even a full year ago. This time last year, it was illegal for people in India to have consensual sex with a member of the same sex. The Humsafar Trust is one of the largest LGBT charities in India. It is primarily based in Mumbai, and at its very base level, it just pretty much provides a community for LGBT people in India to come and make friends and just be themselves. The charity do a lot of work to promote safe sex among the LGBT community because India has a real problem with AIDS and HIV, probably due to the criminalisation of homosexuality for so long. People weren't educated on how to have sex safely. They educate people on HIV and AIDS, they hand out different protection methods, they have clinics where they treat people. They, of course, campaign for law changes, they educate people in authority about LGBT communities, and like I said, at the base level, they just provide a community and different workshops and support groups for LGBT people. As always, if you would like to donate to the Humsafar Trust, the link will be down in the description. Really hope I've been saying that right the whole time, but I do doubt it because I am a little bit stupid. But the link will be down in the description. But yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed, make sure you leave a big thumbs up and subscribe down below if you want to see some more from me, because I upload videos like this all the time. A huge thank you to all of my channel members. If you want to become a channel member and support me and the content and the videos that I make, you can click the link in the description, or you can click the join button under the video if you're on a desktop. All channel members get access to a community tab where we can discuss cases, you can request cases and get them fast-tracked. You also get updates on my channel and upcoming videos and stuff like that. And level 2 channel members will get all of that I just said, as well as their name on this end card at the end of every video. Thank you so much if you do become a member and support the channel. It really does mean the world to me. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to my second channel if you haven't already. It's fun over there. But yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.